Bună ziua, doamnelor și domnilor! Eu sunt Hugo Neumorni și sunt președintele Asociației Directorilor de IT și Comunicații din România, pe scurt CIO Council. Vă rog să-mi permiteți ca în numele membrilor asociației și al meu personal, desigur, să vă mulțumesc pentru că sunteți astăzi alături de noi la o nouă ediție CIO Talks. Pentru astăzi am pregătit o sesiune, spun eu, foarte interesantă, apropo de trenduri și tehnologii, apropo de cele mai interesante trenduri despre care se discută la ora actuală. Vom vorbi în special și în particular despre inteligența artificială, despre advanced analytics și despre cum putem să îmbunătățim, dacă vreți, procesele operaționale și să creștem, știu eu, compania, introducând acest tip de tehnologie în cadrul organizației. Se vorbește foarte mult despre inteligența artificială și uneori lucrurile sunt încă, nu pentru noi profesioniști, dar pentru publicul larg, există o anumită soi de confuzie, mulți considerând în continuare inteligența artificială ca fiind acei roboței care, mă rog, în stil Terminator, care la un moment dat ne vor lua și jobul și vor să ne și arunce afară din planetă. Trecând la lucruri serioase, este un subiect pe care CIO Council îl propune astăzi, încercând să aducă în fața noastră câțiva profesioniști din CIO Council și din cadrul partenerilor noștri care vă vor arăta cum se implementează inteligența artificială în business. Mulțumesc foarte mult, în principal, în primul rând, sponsorilor noștri și partenerilor noștri tradiționali, de exemplu Dell Technologies, Intel, Google, Softelligence și Telecom. Le mulțumim foarte mult pentru participare. Astăzi, față de alte ediții, vom avea și niște premii. Vă invităm foarte mult să avem o comunicare deschisă și cele mai interesante 5 întrebări care vor fi adresate pe parcursul evenimentului, dar în principal în primele sesiuni, vor fi premiate cu câte o carte scrisă de către primul nostru invitat. Este vorba de domnul Paul BROOK, iar cartea se numește The Shape of Data, a Business Guide. Repet, cele mai interesante întrebări, 5 întrebări vor fi premiate la sfârșitul evenimentului. Vă vom anunța cei 5 câștigători și, desigur, mai sunt încă 14 cărți pe care organizatorul cariere le va acorda participanților. De aceea vă invit să avem o discuție foarte aprinsă și foarte deschisă și să folosiți meniul de chat pentru a intra în legătură cu speakerii noștri. Vom avea 4 prezentări. Subiectul a prezentat foarte mare interes și a fost, cum să vă spun, este un subiect foarte hot, să spunem așa, astfel încât vom avea alături de noi pe Paul BROOK, Dell Technologies Data Centric Workloads Specialist Pre-Sales SAP, Oracle and SQL EMEA, Pre-Sales Director, din partea lui Dell Technologies. Vom avea alături de noi, după mulți ani, și un Chief Financial Officer și nu oricare. Este vorba de domnul Nicholas Mahler, CFO, Chief Financial Officer în cadrul Telecom. Vă asigur că va fi o prezentare extrem de catchy, extrem de entuziastă, în care vom atinge inclusiv legăturile relaționarea dintre, nu întotdeauna foarte ușoară, dintre cele două funcții din cadrul unei organizații, IT și Financial. De asemenea, domnul Adrian Blidăruș este CEO al lui Softelligence, una dintre companiile foarte cunoscute pe piața IT din România. Și în ultimul rând, domnul Dorian Hodorogea, Customer Engineer for Smart Analytics în cadrul Google Central Eastern Europe. Salutăm cu ocazia asta și prezența lui Google alături de noi. Iar după aceste 4 prezentări vom avea un panel în care 2 dintre speakeri ne vom challenge-ui, să zicem așa, cu 2 dintre membrii CIO Council. Sau First two sessions will be in English. Let me invite you to Mr. Paul Brook from Dell Technologies. So, Mr. Paul Brook, Paul, how you doing? So, first of all, first time in Romania, right?
That's right. Yes, thank you. Really pleased to be here. Salut, Romania.
All right. So, what do you prepare for us?
Look, we're going to have about 20 to 25 minutes looking at what a data-driven organization needs to think about, needs to work on, and needs to be doing in order to really make things happen. And the name of this is data-driven. What in the name of Freddie Mercury does that mean? Well, I'm going to try and help people understand with a little bit of looking at the shape of data. We're going to have a look at what that could mean to your organization. So shall I move on to my first slide?
You have the floor, Paul.
Hey, you go. Thank you. Everybody, well, here we go. What have the following 5 things got in common? 6 things? I can't count. Newspapers. We are going to talk in the next 20 minutes about newspapers. We're going to talk about pink phone. If you have young children, you may already know what I mean. Pink phone is dancing. We're going to talk about overeating and friends of Masha and the Bear. Look out for a Masha festival. We're going to get serious and look at DNA, the glue that holds the building blocks of life. We're going to look at CERN. And finally, you might look at your phone very differently after the next 20 minutes is finished. Are you ready? Now, really, if we were in a big room, I'd go, are you ready? And you'd have all shouted yes, and I'd be a little bit hard of hearing now. Now, there is, as you heard, a book called The Shape of Data. I'm the proud author of that. The Shape of Data came to me from a company called Pivotal Labs that for a while in the Bay Area with a place that innovators went when they needed to scale an application. And we'll talk about scale later. But this tool was really critical in helping an organization understand how data flowed through that organization and therefore how the organization needed to invest in certain elements of infrastructure, elements of application, and then how and when to use that data most effectively. It's a simple metric. You can run this workshop by yourself. Just pick a value of data. It doesn't have to be euros. It could be in Japanese yen. It could be in net promoter, customer satisfaction, patient outcomes. The value of data is how you choose to value data. And then simply over time. The shape you see here is very much a classic Silicon Valley or Bay Area shape. We call it the bathtub. If you're from the great country of Scotland, you call it the empty Loch Ness, and down there is the Loch Ness monster. But the Bay Area or Silicon Valley curve, as you can see, has really high value in this subsecond. That's often because there's automation and AI up here driving that value. And then their data ages quite badly. By the end of the day, the data is almost worthless, dipping down to the end of the month. But again, the Silicon Valley, read every click, understand the consequences of negative clicks, looked at a banner, did not click, starts to build up a corporate memory of what the real world is about. And a lot of these Bay Area companies, think of what you've read about Uber, what you've read about Airbnb, what you've read about LinkedIn. We have our great friends from Google here. They're using this corporate memory of how their products and services are used to automate more. And just a little thing, I know this is Romania, a country famous for great mathematicians. I've got to put a math symbol in here. That is microtime, a microsecond. And something to tell the kids when we get to the next piece, a microsecond is to a second what a second is to 11.5 days. So automating in those milliseconds, critical. And when the chief executive or the finance officer says, I need this to happen really quickly, all you can say is, oh, it happens way quicker than really quickly, quicker than even Freddie Mercury could judge. And how was data less than 2 decades ago really recognized? I want to describe in a very simple way why that shape of data becomes important. And there's a third dimension, which is the sheer scale of data. I picked 2007 because, you know, it kind of gives you that 20 and a bit years, and it's a point at which we could look at all of the broadcast data, your TV, your radio. There weren't many podcasts, and remember, Netflix wasn't long in the world. We were still very much in an analog world, and all of the data, about 1.9 zettabytes. You can see where this is going. I don't build my slides, but I really love this description. It came to me from a website, and it's been ratified by the Economist newspaper, that 1.9 zettabytes in 2007. That was the equivalent of those 174 newspapers for everyone in the world. And the world's population then was about 6.9 billion. Now, okay, the world's population's gone up to about 7.5 billion now. But look at this, 2025, that 175 zettabytes. Do you see the difference in scale? Instead of having under 200 newspapers every day for every person in the world, there's now 16,000 newspapers per day for every person in the world. It is a scale of data that is phenomenal. And if you're going to be a data-driven business, you need to understand that these 3 points are so critical to how you are going to grab data and make money or save money, improve patient outcomes, save lives, drive human progress. Just because you create data, as the slide says, you don't need to use it forever. The piece of data may be part of a bigger picture. Do you need to save the memory of every pixel on every screen? No. Do you need to save the data of every pixel in every movie that you're rendering? Yes, you do. So think what the data is for before, and this is a company that stores just about half of all the corporate data in the world on our products. Think about, if it doesn't have to last forever, what's your plan for disposing of this? And data is not a thing that can be recycled, but hold that thought. Because data alone, as it says on the slide, is not information. It's what you get from information. And typically we find as you bring different sorts of data together, you're getting a stronger information view. Think of the gaming industry. It talks about real world physics. The more data you can bring from the real world to the virtual world, the more information we believe you'll gain. So you don't need to save everything. It really helps to mix data up. You get better information. And what you might think is junk data, someone else says is really valuable. Remember, my friends, the opposite is true. If you're a small business, always own your data. Now, very quickly, I said we'd talk about dancing. If you've not heard of Pink Fong, I do not encourage you to go and view the video. It's had 7.6 billion views as of the 12th of January this year. That means if it worked this way, everyone in the world will have viewed Baby Shark dance at least once. Now, I know we'll hear from Google Cloud later. What is really interesting is how these views are counted. And my point here is not Google counting YouTube. not arguing about did 4.3 billion views of Masha the Bear, Recipe for Disaster, mean the equivalent of everyone watching it all the way through. What I'm looking at here is, again, the scale of this. But very quickly, do you all remember how advertisers used to work when TV was the only way of advertising in a moving medium? What they used to do is have a Nielsen family in the US. There would be a sample, an example of typical family in your country, in Romania, and then they would put a set top on the box. And they would then guess if someone was watching. They would actually not even know if the family were really viewing, although later on they did get better. YouTube takes away the doubt. It's not only a scale of data that is phenomenal, but the removal of doubt. So now if someone asks, well, I made a video and it's how many people watched it. In the old days, it'd be, well, I don't know. It was on MTV. I don't know how many people watched it. On YouTube, you can see exactly how many times it was watched. And that precision helps in other areas. This is an example of a pathology scanner. It's from a Canadian company called Huron. You see the name at the bottom. And again, we're really pleased to work with Intel on this and work with Dell Technologies and the Huron team, as well as academics at the universities in Canada of Toronto and Montreal. The scanner scans the old slides that you used to put a sample of tissue on, then indexes that tissue, and the pathologist would search for results. Am I looking at Paul Brooks' sample? Does he look like he's looking good? He's looking healthy. Now, with the advent of a very significant and relevant expert center, pathologists, and a large library of data and technology that can take advantage of that large amount of data, serving it quickly, we can, with Huron, apply AI. That means instead of having a pathologist and another pathologist check, and in some cases a third opinion, the AI can take the place of one of these expensive, skilled resources. It can also mean in some extreme cases, the AI can help make a decision where no pathologist is available. If you're having a cancer scan, that sort of AI using data at scale may be the difference between your life and your death. An early diagnosis of cancer is survivable. This is where gathering lots of data and applying AI, life-changing outcomes, my friends. But life-changing isn't always about individuals, much as it's to the individual critically important. Our friends at CERN do something really significant, furthering human progress through the advance of the science of physics, amongst many other things. CERN is credited with inventing the internet. Certainly, Sir Tim Berners-Lee has talked a lot about the protocols that run across the internet that was pre-existing at the time. But something really interesting happens with the smart physicists that work at CERN. And I think this would apply to any business, whether it's a small business like my wife's or my brother-in-law's or my sister or my brother-in-law again. I'm the only person who works for someone in my family. Everyone else either runs their own business or they've retired. Hey, what can you do? What the cool people at CERN do is when this big experiment in the middle, and this actually is a picture of the Atlas experiment, when that collects data, when they collide particles together and then in effect create images of particles that are created by the collisions. Amazing physics. Again, if I was in a room, I'd be saying, folks, hands up who thinks they throw away less than 1% of the data, and your hands would shoot up because CERN will keep everything, won't they? I'd say, okay, folks, who thinks they throw away? You know where this is going. Would it surprise you to find out that CERN in this example can throw away as much as 99.9% of the data that they collect here? Their edge is this experiment. It's a huge high performance cluster. Your edge might be a factory. It might be a series of cameras in a retail store. Applying AI, and this is a huge future of data, is learning and understanding when to throw away data, because what you see is what you expect to see. In CERN's case, there's a known piece of physics occurring. Don't need to keep it. What they keep is how often it occurred, so they can start to build out what an outlier will look like. So they do reuse and they do throw away. And I believe this is the most important thing when you're looking at how, as a data-driven business, you need to create value for your organization, for your customers, your patients, your citizens. It's knowing what to recycle and what to blend with other data, and knowing when the data is just throw it away, but keep a record of what this is what I threw away. Might be 5 and 8. Folks, I work with a company that develops self-driving cars and safe cars. They throw away a lot of video that they shoot of the same road, the same bridge, the same weather conditions. Throw it away. The machine doesn't need to learn from every hour. The machine can learn a different way. And finally, my friends, this is not an advert for Netflix. I will leave you with a thought, and please, by all means, take a screenshot of that. This is a program where Steve Carroll, a professor in New York University, started to look at the breadcrumbs that were left by the use of his mobile phone and some of the other digital footprints that he leaves in the universe. These digital footprints, I look at them as a liquid flow of data through your organization. And in the shape of data, think of the path that a river leaves. And you've heard of phrases like data lakes, that may be this. Collecting data and showing how it could be used. The Great Hack is a fantastic award-winning program, about 2 hours maybe. I'd strongly recommend, if you can watch it, you do watch it. I watch it as a data geek, and I'm not freaked out by how the data is used. Some people get quite upset. The majority get quite inspired. And remember, as you watch The Great Hack, you would be thinking of YouTube, you'd be thinking of Freddie, you'll be thinking of Masha and the bear, you'll be thinking of the kids doing ping pong, you'll be thinking of saving lives. Because using data with AI and automating can help us save lives. And it can also be used for just selling more stuff and getting better products. What you do with the data, your company and you will decide. What it opens up is a full universe for everything. So I thank you very much. I got a couple of questions to go. Hugo, I'm really looking forward to seeing any. So fire away with the questions, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. So there is an interesting one from one of our colleagues. How can we disseminate true data from false data? Sounds interesting.
Ooh, that's a really good one, isn't it? There are so many answers to that question. There's a technology answer. You can apply science. There is a moral answer, and that is, hey, my false data could be your absolute belief. And there is a general answer. I believe, and whether you're in a sports team or whether you're in a science team, keeping a human in the loop is a really good way of helping make those decisions. But do remember, humans are terrible at deciding whether someone's telling the truth or telling a story. Always remember that. It is a superb question. I wish I had the answer. If I did, I would be rich.
All right. So no, it's pretty challenging. So yeah.
Great question, yeah.
How important could be the speed of incorporating the insights from data into products?
Oh, I love that question. It depends on the product. I invest in craft brewing. It's, you know, people say, why not technology? I go, you know, technology is a passion, but I don't want to make stupid mistakes. Brewing, it's been around for a while. Dougal, the master brewer, he uses data that is constantly coming out of the brew house. And taking a quick decision is the difference between a failed brew or a successful brew. Now, success for them, they know what it looks like. So those decisions, actually, in brewing, when things go wrong, it goes bad. Decisions need to be quick. And a lot of it is now automated, particularly temperature. Mm-hmm. But some of the marketing that Dougal uses a lot of data for, he then takes back to his team, because this is craft brewing. It's, you know, let's listen to what people say as well as what we think. So speed is only important when it's important. Sometimes deliberation is really important. And I would urge that you do not be fooled that speed is the only way you can be a success in life. Actually, being accurate can help a lot. A good blend of both. Great question, Hugo, isn't it? I love Romania. They're smart people.
Let me ask you a curiosity of mine. So when somebody's mentioned artificial intelligence, what is the first thing comes up in your mind? It's mass surveillance or technological process, or I don't know, curing cancer, as you said in your presentation.
Absolutely. I have a book about the life of AI. I really believe that AI will just change the way we as human beings interact with the world. I'm an absolute optimist that the curing cancer, extending life, making better lives, helping the blind to see, you know, all of that is what it means to me. Does it also mean there could be a really dangerous weapon? Yes, it could. But, you know, we've survived for a good few thousand years now. I think there's a good few thousand years of really good news ahead of us here. Yeah. And that's the life of AI with us.
Absolutely. And I think the last one, how can I decide, this is a practical one, how can I decide for my organization which data I should keep for 2 days, 2 months, or 2 years?
That's a genius question. Early on in your data journey, keep everything. And then as you draw your shape of data, begin to work at the data you've kept and start to look at what you believe as a human and as a team is of value. And then always keep an element of wildcard. My friends, it's a balancing act. But the good news is a smart business person, a smart scientist, they will know what data to keep. That's how CERN do it.
Paul, thank you very much, Paul Brook. There will be probably a lot of other questions during our session today. If you will stay with us, we will continue to challenge you. Otherwise, thank you very much. And I will, if we will meet in Scotland or England, I like to taste your beer. So thank you again, Paul.